a very good morning to all the people who have just joined recently. I'll move ahead and we can start the session. Next slide. Yeah, so let me just start with a brief introduction first about ourselves. Already Basant Bhai has mentioned, but for people who might have need to know a bit more about us while we discuss. So I represent Lemon Consultech and Lemon Technologies Group. We are into consulting and technology solutions, especially for the gems and jewelry industry globally. We have offices in India, Dubai, Botswana, Hong Kong, various places. And since 27 years, we have been helping or assisting the industry on various aspects of their businesses. And our clients include people from the mining industry, then from the midstream, as well as the retailers, again, across the globe, including jewelry manufacturers, traders, retailers, listing platforms, various trade associations. So in India, the Gems and Jewelry Export Promotion Council, BDB, SDB, as well as similar organizations across various other countries. So that is the brief about our group. And as part of the group, there is a company called Diatech, which is into basically technology solutions and artificial intelligence-based analytic solution. So the presentation that you will see today is the analysis done by our Diatech AI platform and the team. And apart from the analytics, we do a lot of AI-driven demand generation. There is seamless integration with FTPI and API platforms. So any company who has their own web portal, it can link with our platform for sales of their stones. That would expand the reach, and people can reach out to more customers and suppliers. It can also aid in simplified operations. The entire supply chain management gets easier. We have a concept of sustainability rated stones. Then there is artificial intelligence optimized advertising that we do. We can also help create a personalized storefront and link it with our platform to create virtual inventory to display to the customers. So those are the things that we do in Diatech AI. And if you have any other question whatsoever about Lemon, about Diatech, you can always reach out to us. We are there on the group that is created by Amal Bhai on WhatsApp, as well as you can write in the chat bar as well. Diatech AI is also an app on the App Store, both Apple, iOS, and the Android. It is a free download with a sign up. And a lot of the analytics that we are talking today are also available on an ongoing basis in the app that I just mentioned, so that you can keep a track of certain important data and parameters that we'll be discussing. So with this, I now invite Vinit to really start the core aspects of the presentation, part one, which is on the demand side of the lab-grown diamond specifically, and in general, the overall jewelry market, especially the US. So over to you, Vinit, now.
Thank you. So hi, everyone. I think so the topic of this webinar is to understand the current state of the lab-grown diamond industry with data. And I think there's various aspects of understanding where the industry is at. And I think the first one and the very critical one is the demand story. I think a lot of people, especially in the last year, and maybe a bit more so in the natural diamond space, but also the lab-grown diamond space, worry about demand being dead or consumption being, really slow. Overall, it being a hard time in the industry, and it is. So I think the natural question that people have is that has jewelry demand overall decreased? And by how much? And if it has decreased, then is this permanent? So let's look at the data. So again, this is to start with. I think it's important to set the context with general data. So this is the chart of total jewelry consumption. So it includes non-diamond jewelry, natural diamond jewelry, and lab-grown diamond jewelry. But I think as a starting point, what it ideally helps us understand is if we look at the real US jewelry consumption from 2017 all the way up to 2023, compared to pre-pandemic levels, we're still doing very well. The industry overall, the jewelry consumption overall is up at least 12% in real dollar terms compared to pre-pandemic levels. Compared to the peak in March 2022, however, so this was a peak when prices were also at an all-time high for natural diamonds. But overall, this peak in March 2022, since then there has been about a 7 to 8% decline again in total jewelry consumption. So we're not talking about a particular segment like natural diamonds or lab-grown diamonds or non-diamonds. So I think the natural question that we should ask when we look at this chart is, what is the real benchmark? Is March 2022, that peak, the benchmark that we have to compare everything against? And if it is, then we're saying, oh wow, there's a 7 to 8% decline. Global consumption is slowing down. Or is January of 2017, 2018, 2019, those pre-pandemic years, are they a better benchmark to evaluate the current state of the industry? So I think it's worth noting that that previous chart I showed you was in real dollar terms, but in nominal terms, consumption has only declined by about 3% since that March 2022 peak. So if you look at this chart, now that decline after March 2022 is a lot less pronounced. It's a very minor decline that we see. And I think it's even more clearer when we look at this chart. So I think this is my favorite chart that I try to quote as often as I can. And I think it shows very clearly what the reason for a lot of the growth in the US jewelry consumption, especially in nominal terms, after the pandemic was. So because of the slowdown during the pandemic, because of the lockdown, the US government just pumped in a lot of money after the pandemic in recovery efforts. And we see that all of that attributed to more or less a one-to-one increase in the nominal US jewelry consumption. So a lot of people say, 2021 was the rock star, the blockbuster year for jewelry consumption. It released a lot of pent-up demand. And while that is slightly the case, I think more importantly, it has been the money supply increase that has pulled up the overall consumption. And then the 7 to 8% decline in consumption following March 2022 was just the inflation catching up. So, along the same chart, if we plot the CPI, which is the Consumer Price Index, we see that, even though the money supply started increasing very quickly after the pandemic, we really see inflation catching up. So prices for the consumer basket catching up around a 6 to 8 month lag. And that makes sense, right? Money is pumped today. It doesn't increase the prices of everything immediately. There's a lag effect that we see from when the money is printed or pumped in to when prices rise. So after that March 2022 peak, a lot of that decline is just inflation catching up to the high money supply. So by the way, as a side note, we're looking at a lot of economic indicators here. You can play around with all of these indicators yourself at our app, or you can log into analytics.diatech.ai, and you'll be able to see a lot of these indicators, especially import indexes and producer price indexes and all of that. Okay. So I think there have been inflationary pressures. Apart from that, there's also been a general decline due to economic uncertainty. People, especially when they fear that there's going to be a recession coming up, people's propensity to save obviously increases. And because of the higher interest rates, to curb the inflation, there's also been an overall movement away from debt, especially at the consumer level. So if we see some of the consumer analytics, we see that year on year compared to last August, this year we see, especially in the middle and upper classes, we see a reduction in the intention to spend, significant reduction in the intent to use debt, and a general increase in the intent to save. So I think this is part of the reason that we even see a 3 to 5% decline in the nominal terms. But again, this is just part of that impact. And really the big factor is that decline was due to inflation catching up. So what about the big jewelers? How are they performing? If the demand is strong, they should be doing well, right? And they are. So if you look at Signet, if you look at Richmore, if you look at CTF, all of them compared to pre-pandemic levels are doing significantly better. Again, year on year compared to 2022, it has been a difficult year. But again, that's been a lot of it has been due to that transient period in March 2022, which was really the anomaly and not the norm. So if you look at, all of the retailers are doing fine while there's a decline year on year. Revenue is still up largely compared to pre-pandemic levels. So I think the first takeaway here, and again, this is not just specific to lab-grown industry in particular, but in general, I think the key takeaway is that March 2022 is a terrible benchmark to compare jewelry consumption against. It was a very transient period by design. It was temporary because it had high money supply and low inflation, and that was just due to a lag in inflation catching up. And then I think the second takeaway is that while there have been economic uncertainties and that have affected consumption slightly over the last year, overall, compared to pre-pandemic levels, demand is still strong. So that was all about the demand. And this was, again, the general demand looking at jewelry consumption overall. But I think the key question, and I think there's been a lot of controversy, there's been a lot of people taking one side or the other. I think the key question comes down to the natural and lab-grown rivalry. I think a lot of people are concerned about how the future looks for both industries and whether they can coexist. So let's look at some of the data about the dilemma versus natural and lab-grown diamonds. What does the future look like? One way where we can kind of assess consumer behavior and where it's headed is by looking at the search traffic. So, if you look at the last 5 years, the overall interest in lab-grown diamonds, as assessed by the search traffic, has consistently increased and at a very quick pace. And I think that's a good thing. There's a lot of acceptance, I think, in the consumer for grown diamonds. But at the same time, consumers are still very confused. There's terminology like synthetic versus real. There's green diamonds and conflict-free diamonds and all of that terminology. And then there's, grown versus natural diamond. So I think there's a lot of confusion in the consumer. And I think from a branding point of view, this is something that, we really need to work around. One interesting thing that I like to see here is while the search traffic, so the blue line is the grown diamond search traffic, we see that while it has increased very quickly, it hasn't really taken away from the search traffic for real diamonds or natural diamonds. And I think this is just an early indication. I think we'll go into much further detail about this dilemma. But we don't see, at least from this level, cannibalization of natural diamond search traffic just because lab-grown diamond search traffic is increasing. And I think people are just equally curious about both at this point. And I think as an industry, we need to balance that for the long run as well. So 80% of all sales by value is branded diamond jewelry. So branding is and will be key, especially as the lab-grown diamond industry strives to differentiate from the natural diamond industry. And historically, all of this this branding, big part of that has been sustainability. Everyone is talking about how these are green diamonds and these are sustainable diamonds. But with the green guides coming into the US, with Europe working a lot on disclosure, and overall growing marketing efforts, even from the natural diamond side, greenwashing just won't fly anymore in the long run. And I think truly sustainable practices will be a growing customer demand for higher price points, especially. Talking about this brand image, I think declining lab-grown prices also pose a threat to this brand image and its appeal, not just to consumers, but also the jewelers. So, like I said, lab-grown and natural diamond is a very strong branding play, and continued branding and differentiation is certainly an ongoing requirement. But this is true for any industry. It's not just the diamond industry. Any industry, for long-term demand generation, you need to invest and focus on branding. But instead of thinking it as in terms of lab-grown versus natural, instead of thinking these are two opposites, so to speak, I think we need to really acknowledge the different audiences they cater to. So just looking at a geographic level, we clearly see there are some markets that still strongly prefer natural diamonds over grown diamonds. Not just globally, but even within the US, there are certain states that are more, stronger proponents for natural diamonds versus grown diamonds. But even without that, even without the geographical segmentation, we see that only the top 2% of the population accounts for 40% of the luxury spend today. So to that extent, lab-grown diamonds are about the remaining 98%. They're about the next billion users. It is much more of an accessibility story, whereas natural diamonds is much more of a luxury story. And I think when we really acknowledge that the target audiences we're going after are significantly different, we find that we have to change a lot about how we conduct the business as well. Most of the efforts today for selling lab-grown diamonds have been focused on the same applications and target audiences as natural diamonds. And that is detrimental for both industries, not just the natural diamond industry, but also for the lab-grown diamond industry in the long run. While lab-grown prices so far have been relatively less volatile, they've been stable mostly because retailers were able to get really high margins. In some cases, they were able to mark up by 6 times as much. And in the long run, this is not going to happen. Especially, as lab-grown diamonds find their way in the Walmarts and the Costco's, and as online retailers pose a constant competition on price, despite higher margins, jewelers will have to sell 3 to 4 times as many units to maintain a similar income with lab-grown diamonds. So in the long run, this is not sustainable even for most jewelers. Lab-grown diamonds, a lot, we hear this a lot on social media. There's a lot of talk about this number, specifically about how lab-grown diamonds is now almost 50% of loose unit sales by some measures. And at the jewelry level, it is closer to 30%. And most of this today is in bridal. Now, I would like to note that this evidence still does not suggest that it has cannibalized the natural diamond industry. In fact, I did a quick simulation of plugging in the numbers that we do know and figuring out how it would have changed the total units sold of engagement ring as the representative article. And we see that by these measures, the natural diamond unit sales even have grown by 3% compared to pre-pandemic levels. And the value sales, in value terms, the sales have grown by about 12%. Which is about as much as we see the growth in the overall jewelry consumption compared to pre-pandemic levels. So we do see that even natural diamond value sales have grown compared to pre-pandemic levels. Again, compared to 2021, 2022, there's a significant decline. So, compared to pre-pandemic levels in 2022, we were 40% up almost, and now we're back down to 12%. So there's been a stark reduction in that number. But again, we've established that March 2022 and 2021, 2022, that period overall was it was a terrible benchmark. But a few other interesting things pop up here when you look at this data. Firstly, if you look at the total units sold in 2017, we estimate it to be around 15 to 16 million. And again, this is using the unit price of an average ring as the representative article. So by that, we were about 16 million units in 2017. In 2023, we're all the way up to 22 million. So that is a 45% increase in the overall number of units sold. Now that, I think when people say cannibalization, what they mean is there are consumers who are perfectly fine natural diamond consumers, and they're going away to favor lab-grown diamonds instead. And that's cannibalization. But double-digit growth in natural diamond industry was never going to be possible. So by and large, the lab-grown diamond industry and the lab-grown diamond market has grown the overall jewelry market significantly by over 45% in terms of the number of units. So I think this reinforces the fact that lab-grown diamonds cater to a very different audience. And by and large, it's creating new demand in people who could not have bought a natural diamond instead. But at the same time, there are only 2 to 3 million weddings happening in the US every year. And with only a fraction of these before could afford natural diamond engagement rings or wedding bands or whatever, lab-grown diamond has made that luxury more affordable for this market. But this segment is very finite, especially with lab-grown diamond volumes in mind. 2 to 3 million is not that much. And 47% of all jewelry consumed today by value is bridal. And just because diamonds are cheaper, marriage rates are not going to grow dramatically, right? So with finite demand, there's incentives for jewelers to also resist lab-grown diamonds, especially for bridal in the long run. Again, so far, they've not complained because they've enjoyed higher margins on these products. But that's not going to last forever, especially as there's competition from more wholesale channels. So I think with a limited market, with falling prices, with shrinking margins, there's less value for everyone throughout the supply chain if this goes on. But if you look at the chart of what else accounts for, so if 47% is bridal, the remaining 46% is fashion. And I think that is a massive, massive segment for the lab grown diamond space. With increased application, so we can make entire accessories out of lab grown diamonds, entire costumes and props. There's so much scope for differentiation, especially with fashion. There's scope for creating an entire brand out of lab grown diamonds, which, at that volume, these things you couldn't imagine doing with natural diamonds. Creating entire accessories or costumes was not even a possibility with natural diamonds that we can now do with lab grown diamonds. I think more importantly, when we're talking about a very quickly growing volume of lab-grown diamonds, I think we'll need something like this that can absorb lab-grown diamonds in bulk. They can absorb higher volumes at lower prices, because let's face it, in the long run, for jewelers, for manufacturers, for growers, for nobody in the supply chain, it's going to be feasible to sell individual diamonds by the piece. I think more and more is going to go in that bulk segment, because the overheads of individual transactions are going to far outweigh the benefits that people will get at that single stone price point. And so we see a lot of big fashion houses like LVMH or Swarovski venture in to the lab-grown diamond space for fashion applications. And I think it's going to keep on growing. So I think this is a very massive movement, and we're going to see more and more of this as a sustainable endpoint for the lab-grown diamond industry. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, if you think about it really, at some point in the past, the natural diamond industry convinced the consumer that engagements require diamond rings. To commemorate this occasion of love, you need a diamond ring. And today, after that, bridal is almost half the market. And this made sense for natural diamonds because they had to focus on the top 2% of the market. And bridal, because of the high ticket price, it was a perfect match. But why can't lab-grown diamonds create new segments in the same way, which are more proportionate to this business? So let's take the gifting industry, for instance. In the US, the gifting industry is worth over $130 billion. And this is much larger than the bridal industry, but it's even larger than the overall jewelry industry as a whole today. With the natural diamond price tag, gifting at its scale was never a potential outlet. Lab-grown diamonds can open up this whole new world of possibilities, be it corporate gifting or personal gifting. So like natural diamonds have been synonymous, at least in the past, with bridal, lab-grown diamonds can be synonymous with the gift of choice. For example, for Mother's Days or birthdays or Sisters' Days, the possibilities are endless. So, a lot of people say natural diamonds are a symbol of love. Well, lab-grown diamonds can be a symbol of more love at more occasions, at a higher frequency. If you look at the engagement or weddings, they happen once over a lifetime. However, there are so many other occasions which are just it's the same kind of emotion of love, but they're way more frequent. So while we said there are 2 to 3 million weddings happening every year, there may be 85 million mothers whose children will celebrate Mother's Day every year. So that market is much bigger, and it's not even competing with natural diamonds, because gifting your mother a natural diamond every year, that's a much bigger price point. That gap is much more significant than what lab-grown diamonds can achieve there. So I think in the long term, this is going to grow to be a very sustainable segment for the lab-grown diamond industry. And as an industry, I think we really need to work towards focusing on those more long-term objectives, because we're not all here for the short-term gains. Because I think when we do that, when we make decisions that hamper long-term growth of the industry, I think that's a bigger problem to face. So to this end, even associations as a whole can play a huge role. It could be in establishing marketing campaigns so that lab-grown diamonds become synonymous with said occasions, Or it can involve striking partnerships with new markets or with fashion brands to increase the volume of consumption, because I think lab-grown diamonds are a lot more about that volume of consumption. So the key takeaways here, especially in this section, is I think the industry needs to move away from thinking that it's natural diamonds versus lab-grown diamonds and think about new applications to fully utilize the amount of supply coming into the market. And despite growing acceptance, I think continued branding will be critical, including avenues like sustainability. I think there's a need to take the discussion away from pricing by driving differentiation across the board. So that was about the dilemma, and I think the conflict, so to speak, between natural and lab grown diamonds. But what about the price? And I think even on the registration form, the number one question that people had was, what is the outlook on price? When will prices stabilize? How do we solve the problem of the volatility in lab grown diamond prices? So first of all, we do acknowledge lab-grown prices are falling very quickly. In many cases, prices have fallen by over 10% in the last month alone. We can get like a 1 carat stone well below $200 now. So firstly, there are several implications that this has. Lab-grown diamonds has become much more of a total price model instead of a dollar per carat model, because a lot of the overheads, a lot of the fixed costs, they apply per piece instead of per carat. So for example, it is not uncommon to see 1.26, 1.27 carat stones that are significantly lower in dollar per carat terms, so 170, $180 per carat, just because you can get a much higher total price out of those pieces. Whereas compared to 1 carat stones or 1.02, the dollar per carat on average is going to be a bit higher, just because the total price is lower. And so I think this reinforces that as an industry, we the lab-grown diamond industry is very different from the natural diamond industry. The way of doing business is fundamentally different, because in natural diamonds, this is going to be completely the reverse. 1.20, 1.30 carat stones are just significantly more rare compared to 1 carat stones, and so we'll see a much wider gap in the dollar per carat. But in the lab-grown space, the dynamics of the industry are just completely different. Pricing is also becoming a lot more linear. So in the natural diamond space, again, as we go towards far sizes, we see a very quickly increasing dollar per carat. Whereas in the lab grown space, I think between $200 and $400 a carat, maybe 80% of the industry is captured. So at least at the wholesale level. So pricing is also becoming very linear. We do see, so this is a heat map of the current certified inventory overall. So on the x-axis, we have all the carats, and on the y-axis, we have the price per carat. So, for example, what this indicates is there's as we go from 0 carats to 0.5, the average price per carat is declining slightly. So again, this is reinforcing the total price model that I just mentioned earlier. Because that gap, that overhead of per piece is significantly divided as we go in higher sizes. We also see that, so for example, 6% of all certified inventory of lab-grown diamonds is in this very small spot between 1 to 1.10 carats and around $250 to $300 per carat. So I think that's where a lot of the industry is concentrated right now, and over 20% of all certified stones are in this segment. So around $200 to $400 per carat, and between 1 and 1.5 carats. So this shows us where most of the inventory currently is concentrated. Secondly, since volume is becoming way more important, suppliers often find it very expensive to negotiate. So a lot of suppliers I can see personally are moving to a one price system, or if they're going for lower offers, they only do that when there's bulk deals on the table. Thirdly, we see especially for smaller sizes and lower colors and clarity, so basically for lower value stones, there is a very quick reduction in certified inventory because the costing of certification has become infeasible. So if you look at, so this is again a heat map from the Diatech platform. If you look at the heat map of how the certified inventory in different categories is changing over the last 30 days, we see that especially below 1 carat, we see that certified inventory is very quickly decreasing. There's less new supply coming into this segment. because so already dossiers account for only 23% of all goods in unit terms, and in carat and value terms this is significantly lower, and we're seeing decreases still further, just because the cost of certification, that overhead, is becoming more and more infeasible. The same thing we see in lower colors and clarities. So for example, JKLM colors or I clarities, we see 60 to 70% decreases in some cases in the overall certified supply. Whereas for VVS, VS goods, IEF goods, we're seeing a continuous improvement. We're seeing a continuous increase in supply. And I think what this goes to show is, in fact, this is a very interesting statistic. We say that prices are constantly falling, but because of this reduction in certified inventory for lower value goods, we're seeing that actually over the last month, the average unit price, and this is the total price for certified wholesale lab-grown diamonds, has actually increased by about 5%, from around $1,200 to $1,260. And this is a result of those lower value stones being sold more and more in uncertified parcels. So here's a distribution of retail sales, the retail sales value by different size groups. So we're seeing more and more that FAR sizes account for a much greater market share. Last year, around November, they had around 12% market share by value. And this is sales, not inventory. And by now, by the end of September, this was almost 30%. Even by carat, in carat terms, the overall distribution of retail sales has grown from 7% to 20% in those FAR sizes, so 4 carat plus. So more and more, we're seeing a shift to larger is better, and that size attribute is becoming more and more prominent, especially in the lab-grown space. Now, this makes sense intuitively. If you think about it, consumers, when they can buy a lab-grown diamond, a much bigger lab-grown diamond for cheaper, I think there's going to be a general movement towards that. But also for growers, because they can get much better margins in those higher sizes, just because there's still, pricing is not completely linear yet at the wholesale or especially the retail level, but their costs, the growing costs, are significantly more linear, especially for larger sizes. So I think one thing to note here is that natural diamond industry, for example, is self-regulating. If there were sustained pressure on lower colors and clarities or smaller size goods, we would see that some mines have shut down, and therefore they'll overall reduce the supply and stabilize the price naturally. I think what will happen more and more is lab-grown diamonds will also eventually self-regulate with lower margins, especially in those lower colors and clarity goods. The overall ROI on those investments will tank. So especially for new entrants into the market now, that's sort of a deterrent, so to speak. But also combined with some consolidation among the larger players, I think price stability may finally be on the horizon. More importantly, though, I think declining prices underline the fact, and this is the headline, so to speak, that inventory is a liability. And again, this is very different from the natural diamond way of doing business, because inventory shows up as an asset on your balance sheet. There's this general mentality that, my inventory is my biggest asset. While even for natural diamond industry, that's changing very quickly. For lab-grown diamond industry, it's even more prominent because the prices decline so quickly. Holding inventory is a massive liability. So especially with easy access to virtual inventory and memo goods, especially for retailers, some of the big ones, there's less incentive to hold stock midstream. And rising interest rates are not helping the cause. There's a huge deleveraging movement throughout the industry. So since 2019, bank debt for the wholesale diamond industry has gone down by over 26%. And how's debt decreasing? At the end of the day, deleveraging implies, we're reducing inventory. For manufacturers, for traders, this means that they're selling off inventory at lower prices to pay off debt. Even retailers like Signet have almost, reduced their inventory by 13% since 2020. And compared to pre-pandemic levels, it's up by, it's down by almost 20%. And in fact, between Jan and June 23, so the first half of this year, Signet closed the net total of 47 stores. So Signet has thousands of stores, so this is a small percentage. But what this goes to show is that fewer stores means less need for physical inventory to be held, which means more goods that are going to be left in the midstream. So again, this goes to show that deleveraging for retailers may also include leases and real estate, which ultimately put a pressure on inventory and create a further supply glut in the midstream. So in the long run, what all of this will lead to is that manufacturers will likely need to opt for inventory light models. So there's going to be more of program-based and demand-based manufacturing, ultimately, so that they can churn through inventory in a more efficient manner. Due to this, the stock loss and some of the long-term memos will render that business model also less effective. But again, that requires consolidation to happen, because as when there's so much competition, there'll always be someone who's willing to give goods on memo at a cost. But as you know, because of the stock loss, because of the consolidation movement that we see happening, again, this is going to change, and that business model is going to evolve very dramatically. So again, the key takeaways here are the way of doing business is evolving, especially as the price changes the market dynamics. When we go from thousands of dollars to hundreds of dollars, I think the way that business is done is changing very dramatically. We see a broadening gap between traditional natural diamond ways of doing business and lab-grown diamonds. And I think for a lot of people in the trade, this requires a paradigm shift. If we approach the lab-grown diamond business with the same mentality as natural diamonds, then there's a lot of risks of doing that. And I think in the long run, more and more people will have to realize this quickly, that it's a completely different mentality that we need to bring to the table. Also, the overall deleveraging movement caused by high interest rates, part of it is also reluctance of the banks. And inventory light models, due to the high depreciation cost, what they do is they contract the sales in the midstream. They affect the ability for the midstream, which includes the traders or the jewelers, to absorb and buy stock and hold stock, which, with consolidation, will need to be self-regulated over time. So all of this was about the current state of the industry. But what is the way forward? How do we approach this problem, and how do we work towards stabilizing prices and creating new demand? So I'll hand over the discussion back to Nirav Bhai, who will take this forward.
Great. So I think in the context of the previous section, as a trade, we need to really think what exactly is the proposition of a lab-grown diamond. And in order to basically check that everyone is there and everyone is alert and they are having a good time listening at the presentation, I will first run a poll for everyone to just participate, and then we will continue on this section of the. So you have a question on your screen. What is exactly a lab-grown diamond according to you? Is it a luxury product, a fashion product, a component of a product, a gifting article, or if it is something else, you can write in the chat box. Okay, I think more and more people are voting for it to be a fashion product, and which is, I think, very, very, it is a good sort of, like it is reinforcing that it is not really positioned. We are not positioning it vis-a-vis or as against the natural diamond or a mined diamond, which is a luxury product, or it is supposed to be a luxury product. So I think the way everyone has voted is extremely good. However, what I see happening more and more is that everyone is still competing more on the price. Although we consider it as a luxury product, but we have made it more into a commodity by just focusing on the price element rather than on the productization of the lab-grown diamond. And therefore, the next section is all about how do we really talk about, or what should be the way forward for the industry. So more and more, like most of the people in the lab-grown diamond trade today hail from the natural diamond industry, and therefore the thought process to start with had been to focus on the same attributes, same customers, same segments as was focused on the natural diamond trade. And that has been sort of a big issue for both the natural diamond as well as the lab grown diamonds. And while it is diverging, it is not diverging enough, and the industry has not been taking great or concrete actions to fundamentally position it very differently than the natural diamond industry. Next. So it starts with the pricing first of all. Like the diamond prices of the lab grown trade, we have linked it to the natural diamond industry, the RAP price index. Even though Rappaport does not endorse, does not allow the listing of the lab grown diamonds on its portal, we still, lot of us use the RAP price list as a reference price list for the pricing. Many times it is surprising for an outsider like us to, when we discuss with a lot of people from the trade as to what is the price of a particular stone, they need to refer to the RAP and then do a back calculation. No one knows by heart, or they cannot quote a diamond price in per carat terms. Although this is changing, but it is not changing too fast, and still we are hooked onto the RAP pricing mechanism. And why that is so? Why it is, if it is a different product and if you want to position it as a different product compared to the natural diamond, then it has to be priced differently. And while we are still hooked onto the RAP prices, the problem is that any increase in the natural diamond prices, the polished diamonds from the mine industry, it is automatically impacting the pricing of the lab grown diamond because it is linked to the RAP pricing. So I think the first thing to start with is on the pricing. The industry needs to really decouple, have its own pricing mechanism. The second thing is about the evaluation parameters, the grading parameters. How do you really view or judge whether a diamond is good or not? So again, we are using the same parameters as are used by the natural diamond trade. Whether that is really required. So the difference between an F color and an H color in natural diamonds may be as high as 40%, while in lab growns it is probably lower than 6-7%, surely less than 10%, and that too in absolute terms the difference would be negligible, less than $10-15. So as an example, we have put in the screen, in case of a natural diamond F color, this particular size, the index on our platform reads that the market price is around $5,138 per carat, while in the case of an H color, everything else remaining the same, if the color is an H color, then it is 3,118. So there is a difference of 40%, and in absolute terms also the difference is huge. While the same thing in a lab grown diamond, the same categorization, everything else remaining the same, if it is F color or H color, the difference is 7.5%, and in absolute terms it is $14 per carat is the only difference. So the question then comes, why do we really need so many colors? Why do we need so many purities? Just like the natural diamond trade, why can't we just have, say, 3 color categories, C1, C2, C3, and 3 for purity, maybe P1, P2, P3, something like that. So a new categorization is required again to de-link it from the natural diamond industry, where each small difference in the parameter could have a huge value implication, which is not the case in the lab grown diamond trade. And when you do that, the requirement of a laboratory to grade the diamonds goes away, the time is saved, the cost is saved. In natural diamonds, apart from the basic color and purity characteristics, there are 124 other parameters. Some of them have been very important in the pricing of the stone. So the key two symbols, the fluorescence, black table, whether black inclusion in the table or the crown, etc. While all this is not required in the lab grown diamonds because there are no inclusion, it is good, pure goods because it is in a controlled environment. So even for a consumer, for the retailers, for anyone in the pipeline downstream, if it is a simpler categorization, it will be more useful, easier, less confusing, and they'll have more confidence in the entire system, rather than understanding so many complexities and technicalities, which is not required. So I think the second important element is that it has to have an independent evaluation mechanism, and again the associations have a great role to play. The third is the target audience. So the natural diamonds are focused on the top 2% of the population globally, only the very wealthy people, and therefore it is considered a luxury product. While the lab grown diamond is for the next billion people, it is a fashion product, as all of us understand. So why not position it squarely as a fashion or a gifting product, rather than a position or trying to position it either as a luxury product or classifying it as a commodity. The more we classify it as a commodity, then it is only on the price that it will sell. That is not the great thing for all of us. So I think competing on price should go away. And there are so many elements, so many opportunities presented by the lab-grown diamond trade for innovation and creativity, both at the stone level as well as at the jewelry level. People have been coming up with so many exciting new designs, and if they are properly marketed, then it is again on the design level itself, it will create a differentiation. So in the natural diamond trade, 3 out of every 4 stones are rounds. As we all know, round brilliant cut is the most widely sold stone in the natural diamond industry. But currently, even in the lab grown trade, more than half are still rounds. Why is something which we need to address and understand. The only reason currently it is rounds because we want to just cannibalize on the natural or ride on the wave of the natural diamond trade. That is not going to help. We need to really start thinking on innovative and creative aspects to the entire the opportunity that is presented by the lab grown diamond. So some of the interesting shapes, it could be alphabets, it could be a horse, it could be the star signs, whatever. All this is possible in the lab grown diamonds. People can create innumerable patents. It is not a finite group of things that can be created. You can have fashion designers coming up and creating something. There could be product designers who can create new designs. So all these opportunities are thrown up. And if we grab that properly, rather than coming up with only round brilliant cuts, even in the lab grown trade, I think that is going to differentiate and create a new market. So that is the third aspect. Fourth is marketing. Like, you cannot use the core marketing principles that are taught in a MBA school in the natural diamond trade. But all these are extremely relevant in the lab grown trade. If you just go by the book for marketing, how do you really do the branding? What is your product packaging, the product positioning, the distribution, promotions? All these you can apply the traditional knowledge, apply the knowledge which is used by other industries like FMCG or white goods or any other industry. What is Apple doing? What are other retailers or product categories doing? You can copy or mimic from them, learn from them, and implement in the lab grown diamond space, which was not available in the natural diamond space. So again, a corollary to all this is that more you go downstream, higher are the margins, and because the margins are higher, or the possibility of margins are higher, you can really spend on promotions, advertisements, do proper marketing, and that way you can create your further differentiation. This means vertical integration will become commonplace. Jewelry is not a commodity, and a fashion has more opportunity for differentiation. So again, in the natural diamond industry, we see that there are so many players in the entire pipeline. The supply chain would have first the miner, then the cutter and polisher, or the rough diamond dealers, then the cutter polisher, then comes the traders, polish traders, then would come the jewelry manufacturer, then the wholesalers, then the retailers. Probably in the lab grown diamond industry, it will be more and more either vertical integration, at least up to the stage the finished jewelry is sold to a retailer, or it will be very interesting partnerships and tie-ups so that the supply chain is more integrated. I think that is again an opportunity to really create integrated supply chains which are more efficient. So I see overall there is a huge role for the trade collectively to take steps as an association, a formal association, or in whatever form the collective initiatives can be taken. So let me present from our side a 7-point plan. So first is invest in marketing for mass scale segments of fashion and gifting. So as we just mentioned, like engagement rings, which comprise the most important segment for the natural diamond industry, why can't we create a space in other such segments? As an example, Mother's Day or Mother's Birthday. If for 2 years there is a collective campaign, there is a huge advertisement on a collective basis by the association, and just try to develop the concept of gifting of a lab grown diamond to the mother on a Mother Day or her birthday. And that way, if everyone is focused on creating demand in that fashion, maybe 5, 10, 15 years down the line, each Mother Day would be synonymous with gifting of a lab grown diamond, just like a natural diamond is synonymous with an engagement ring. Similarly, once that is done for a couple of years and the market starts evolving, then the association can change the focus to some other category. As an example, Sister's Day or Raksha Bandhan, as we call in India. Why not gift a lab grown diamond to the sisters on that day? That way, it can be innumerable such opportunities. And because most of these days or birthdays or gifting occasions are very often, like every year, you can have that possibility to gift. And as Vinit mentioned, like diamonds could be a symbol of love, while lab grown diamonds are a symbol of more love. You can express that love again and again. So that is the concept which needs to be probably propagated again to the channel partners. The distributors will be able to, or will be encouraged, if they understand that the possibility of lab grown diamonds is repeated sales to the same customer or the group of customers, unlike a natural diamond. And there the data and the use of data, customer relationship management, how do you really work on those aspects will also become very important. The next, I think, point is working on a common nomenclature, a new pricing mechanism, delinking it from the natural diamond pricing or the rep price list, having a new set of evaluation parameters. Let us set a new set of parameters and everyone starts following that rather than copying the natural diamond parameters. And all the specifications, everything should be distinct and separate. If that is done at an association level, everyone agrees to that and starts following that, it can be a game changer. And I think that is something which should be the top on the agenda for the association. The third point is running awareness campaigns, organizing buyer-seller meets across different cities in the US and then globally also, so that you are able to reach out to the end customers, whether the consumers directly or the moment of the last points of contact with the consumers. Again, partnering with brands, even fashion houses, all that can happen through the route of the association. The next point is collect, collate, analyze, and disseminate valuable statistics and analytics on trends, buying patterns, regional preferences, new product categories. So as an example, when we say the gifting market is much larger than the entire jewelry industry. And within the gifting market, there will be so many product categories. Do we have information on all of them? Who is buying those gifts? At what price points? How are they distributed or marketed? If all those information are collected and collated or analyzed properly at an association level and disseminated to the members, I think it can be a great service to the entire trade. So that was fourth. The point number 5 is constant sessions like this for knowledge sharing on activities. Again, it could be more and more subjects, maybe marketing. How do you do better logistics? Again, partnering with service providers with bulk contracts to facilitate the industry and getting professionals on board. So the association can maybe partner with logistics companies to see how best the fastest and the lowest cost deliveries can be made to the remotest corner, first of the US and then to the globe. So those things can be done by the associations. The sixth point, creating common training material for the frontline salespeople, so that each trade member can be equipped with a material which can be given to the retailers, who in turn can train their frontline salespeople, so that when there is a consumer walking in, he gets a standard uniform communication and message, rather than everyone trying to come up with a new communication system. So that is point number 6. Point number 7, engage with and create a community of designers of various products and get them interested to create unique and innovative designs using lab-grown diamonds for their respective product categories. So as an example, there could be designers who are designing bridal wear dresses. How can we collaborate with them so that they can get more and more lab-grown diamonds studded on those expensive dresses that they design for the bridals? As an example, there could be different product designers globally, whether it is furniture designers, automobiles, it could be anywhere. And that could be explored if somehow they can integrate or they can include lab-grown diamonds as part of their design, so that new product categories can emerge. So I think these are the 7 things which have immediately come to mind. Probably those are the first things that can be done. Once those are done, there could be more points that can be added to the bucket list, and collectively the industry can try and work more on this. So I think that is all on what the association can do. We can now do a quick recap on the points. So the key takeaways, first of all, from the session, that we again just do a quick recap, especially for people who joined later, but also before we jump onto the Q&A, it will be easier if we know what are the points that were discussed. The point number 1 was March 22 was a transient period with high money supply, low inflation, and is therefore not a very good benchmark. So when we compare and when we say that the industry is not doing good, it is in doldrums, let us not compare it with the peak. Largely, demand and revenue of big retailers is up compared to pre-pandemic levels despite economic factors. So the entire issue is not really about the demand and the consumption. It is more to do with the supply. The supply has been much higher than what we have been able to create a demand for. So if we focus on the demand, I think lab-grown diamonds is all about the distribution story, nothing else. If we are able to create a distribution network and the demand, then automatically the prices will stabilize and maybe start rising in future. Natural diamonds and lab-growns can and will coexist because the target segments, the stories, the distribution, the prices, everything is different. Let us not try to mix both of them. Let us not just try to work in a fashion as if we want to replicate the natural diamond aspects into the lab-grown trade. And let us not try to fight with the natural diamond industry. Recently, I was in a conference in Chennai on the lab-grown diamond trade, and a speaker on the panel, and they were showing some videos to highlight the importance of the lab-grown diamond industry. And it started with showing natural disasters and various environmental damages before coming to the point of the actual how does the lab-grown diamond look or things like that. I think if we just try to defame or discredit the natural diamond industry in order to gain some market share, then it is not going to work, and it can be counterproductive, because then the natural diamond trade will try to position or convey a brand, or they may communicate in a fashion that the lab-grown diamonds are fake diamonds, they are synthetics, they don't have value. So they'll have their points to communicate, we'll have our points. So rather than fighting with each other and spoiling both businesses, it is better to really focus on what is the next opportunity and really work on that. Fourth point, branding. And branding is always important in any business, more so in the lab-grown diamonds. Fifth, natural diamonds and lab-grown diamond ideologies are diverging in many ways, and suppliers will have to adapt to the new way of business. You cannot do the lab-grown diamond business in the same fashion that probably you were doing the natural diamond trade. Sixth, economic factors have contracted the capacity of the midstream to absorb inventory. But the industry will self-regulate at consolidation, will happen and pricing pressures will ease. Delinking from the natural diamond needs to be extended even further with pricing to grading requiring a new perspective. So whether it is the pricing mechanism, the grading or evaluation mechanism, the positioning, the stories, everything will have to be different, and a new category has to be really positioned as a new category. Instead of pricing on fighting or competing on price and making lab growns as a commodity, we need to really extend to more application and focus on innovations and creativity more and more. Then the opportunity is immense. It is unlimited because the natural diamonds are limited to maybe 2% of the global population, where lab growns can be for the next 40%, maybe 50%, 60% of the population, and it could have repetitive and recurring purchases, not a one-off purchase. So I think that is a very important message, that it is a huge opportunity. If you consider it as a very long-term play, it is going to be a great opportunity. So LGD has a huge market and many applications which we have only scratched the surface. While supply has been growing, less effort has been done on growing the demand, largely trying to appeal to the same audience and applications as natural diamond, which is a lose as we saw. And therefore, the associations can play a very important role in various things. The 7-point plan that we spoke, also striking important partnerships to help bridge the gap, and collectively everyone can benefit. I think with that, we would maybe put the floor open for questions and discussions. Basant bhai, maybe if you want to take over, if there are questions on the chat bar, we will surely have a look and address that. But before that, maybe I'm sure Basant bhai and few other dignitaries would like to share their views, not just on the presentation, but the status of the industry in general. So thank you everyone again, and over to you, Basant bhai.
Thank you, Nirav bhai and Vinit bhai. I think Amish bhai had some points to share with us, so I would request Amish bhai to please take over.
Thank you, Nirav, Vinit, and Basant bhai. I think it was an excellent presentation and gives a very clear perspective, very importantly, of where the industry needs to move ahead. You know, the first 7 years have been interesting, primarily how Nirav and Vinit mentioned. I think a lot of conversation has been about how do you ride the tails of the earth mine category, the center diamond business. Realistically, when you look at the retail trade today, one of the challenges, and that's about 80% of the stores in the United States, the brick and mortar stores, are purely relying on the sales of the center diamond with little to no jewelry in their stores. It's the big box retailers that are now starting to carry jewelry, which will make an impact. The opportunity in the bigger part is in the fashion and the fine jewelry. Depending on how everybody will position, especially, you know, you build midstream brand, mid-level brand, price point brand, or a semi-luxury brand. I think the luxury part is again relative because it's always depending on how you position yourself. The opportunity is very wide, and the industry is at that junction whereby unless we transition to that, we are going to further create a lot of trouble because you're sort of trying to consistently battle with the earth mine category with little to no marketing, no trade associations in place, and no combined efforts to communicate with the consumer. So I think I really appreciate what you have presented along with the data, and it clearly puts a guideline for everybody to see. It might be a little hard in the beginning because I think the industry by nature is very used to following a pattern. So in the simplest way, it's a process of unlearning before learning. It's a process of, in a way, leaving one industry. We come from the diamond industry as a whole. I think we are entering the technology industry where the value of a component is not relative to the product you can create. And I think this is very, very critical. I think something I'm going to say is not everybody's going to like it. is that in order for the midstream to exist in the next 5 years, it is not going to just be an option, but a requirement. Especially, I am from New York myself, so we are in that phase. Though we are a producer and have a position on the front end. For anybody in the midstream to exist, it is going to be about creating value, and the creation of value is not about adding a margin on a component, which is currently what we term as a loose diamond. It is purely going to be how are you going to innovate or design diamonds, design jewelry, and then the best part that you said, which I've been a firm believer, that this product needs branding, marketing, promotion, and ultimately consumer communication. So I think that's from my part. I think there are a lot of seniors on this call, but that's my 2 cents, and I believe that it's key. And I think Nirav and Vineet have further, anchored the conversation, and hopefully everybody picks up from there. So please, over back to the Vasant Bhai, over back to you. Thank you. Vasant Bhai, you're on mute.
Yeah, Jitubhai, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can I invite you to share some thoughts?
Sure, Basant, thank you very much for everybody to come on this Zoom today. My thoughts are very, I mean, like since, I'm in this business, one of the earlier one, and who saw this big opportunity in this product. I would like to say like few things, which is one of the chart what Jogani brothers has, I mean, like Mr. Jogani has shown, that the chart today is like, bridal versus fashion, which is 46 versus 47%. That's where the huge opportunity that can be 25-75. That's one of the huge opportunity, because fashion is going to be a big thing. And especially if I talk in terms of American market, where US consumers today about they are buying diamond jewelry on an average 5 years. Consumer comes to the retail stores about every 5 years on an average. That can be a huge opportunity for us, that can convert, so the opportunity is basically to bring them 3 to 5 times in a year. So you imagine that humongous, huge opportunity. Same thing with the probably like 2 to 3% consumers in the world, probably they are buying diamonds. That can be done, or that can be converted, like bring them new consumers from 10% to 15% in next 3 to 5 years. That could be a huge opportunity for us. As well as, like what we say, left hand ring, which is engagement ring. On the body, basically, we have only one left hand ring. One left hand, finger, but the whole body is open, completely open. So the opportunity is huge in terms of fashion jewelry, body jewelry, and any other, thing. Especially, when fashion, when you speak about fashion, most of the product right now is built. Of course, today everybody's going after bridal, but definitely we all will have to think and rethink about like fashion, as well as the price point. Of course, everybody is right now fighting for the price point, but eventually everything will start shaping up. Right now, even at the retail front, the prices are not stabilized, or they are constantly playing with the pricing. But at some point, in US market, at least I'm seeing that like most of the price point, let's say right now what I see is like especially 1 carat price. If you see that $1,500 to $1,700 at retail, it's kind of getting firm. So all those things will happen, not today, but like eventually, slowly, next 2 to 3 years, things will stabilize more. And I see there is a massive opportunity in this business. I see sometimes there are some negative marketing. Sometimes Mr. Rappaport also speak up certain things. Maybe he is giving his own view, but that does not mean, because there is no data available today for lab grown diamonds, because we don't have a business. So there is a huge opportunity, everybody must understand, but definitely at the same time, we should not think that this business is versus or against Mind Diamond. It's all about business, and everybody must think that how we will be able to bring new business on the table, rather than the same existing business and just take a share from the existing business. That's my view. um, I think pretty much, as I said, like we have a huge opportunity, and we should not think that this is a fight between the lab versus mind. Basan bhai, I would like to conclude on this on from my side, and
Thank you,
if there
Jitu bhai.
is anyone has a question, please ask me. Thank you
Thank
very
you
much
very
for
much.
your time.
Okay, so this is an open forum. Anyone who wants to share their thoughts or have a question, please type your questions or thoughts, or you, instead of raising your hand, just put in the chat that you want to speak up, and we will let you speak. In the meantime, I'll ask Amal bhai if he would like to share some of his thoughts. Amal bhai, please. You are on mute, Amal bhai. You're on mute, Amal bhai. Amal bhai, તમે mute ઉપર છો. We cannot hear you.
Okay.
Okay, now we can hear you. Go ahead.
બધાને એક સવાલ પૂછું છું કે આપણે ક્યાં બેસ્યા છીએ? અમેરિકામાં, ન્યુયોર્ક, USA. શેના માટે બેઠા છીએ? આપણું કામ માર્કેટિંગ અને સેલ કરવાનું છે. અહીંયા આપણે કોઈ મશીન નાખી, ફેક્ટરી નાખીને આપણે કોઈ ચીજ કરતા નથી. એટલે જ્યારે પણ માર્કેટ ઘટે, વધે, તો આપણે એનો રસ્તો કાઢવાનો છે. તો જાત જાતના સેમિનારમાં જાઓ, સમજો કે કઈ વસ્તુથી શું કરવાથી આપણે આની વેલ્યુ વધારી શકીએ અને આપણે કમાઈ શકીએ. આપણું કામ માર્કેટિંગ અને સેલ કરવાનું છે. અત્યારે પણ તમે એક ચીજ ધ્યાનમાં રાખી છે. અત્યારે જો 10 પોઈન્ટનો હીરો મને 1 કેરેટ કે 2 કેરેટ કે 10 કેરેટ જોઈએ ને, તો ભાવ નથી બોલતો, પણ X ભાવમાં મળી જાય. પણ એનું જ તમે જો લેઆઉટ, એટલે કે કુશન કટ કે એમરલ્ડ કટ કે કોઈ પણ એ લેવા જાઓ છો, ત્યારે તમને એનો ભાવ ખબર છે ને, X પ્લસ 3 ગણો ભાવ છે. એટલે આ શું થયું કે સીધે સીધું જો વેચવું હોય તો એનો ભાવ નહીં આવે, પણ કંઈક નવું ઇનોવેશન તમે કરશો તો જરૂર તમે કમાશો. માટે હિંમત હારો નહીં, અને આ દેશમાં ઘણું જ કમાવાનું છે. થેન્ક યુ વેરી મચ. બસંતભાઈ, ટેક ઓવર.
I think કોઈએ હાથ પણ ઊંચો કર્યો છે, તો maybe they can unmute and speak. કોઈ એક જણનો હાથ.
Yeah, I think there's one Praveen bhai. He has a question. Believe Nirav bhai, you can see it, right?
Yeah.
So the consumption statistics is more about the search traffic. So we can see, and this is publicly available data. So Google releases which states in the US are searching more for natural versus lab grown, and you can color this. So I'm happy to share the links also. If you're interested, please reach out and I can share the exact link where you can see this data in real time.
Thank you, Vinit bhai. I don't see anybody else having a question, but I do have one for Vinit bhai and Nirav bhai. With all the analysis that you have done, where do you see this industry in 5 years down the road and 10 years down the road, and how you think we will be able to achieve that growth?
So I'll maybe first share my views and then Vinit can.
Okay.
પહેલા તો the size of the industry compared to Mind Diamonds can be maybe 10 times, 50 times, 100 times, 1000 times. It is unlimited. Mined diamonds by definition શું છે તો એ લિમિટેડ સપ્લાય છે, જેટલું અર્થમાંથી નીકળે છે એટલું જ વેચાવાનું છે અને એમાં નફો વધારે હશે તો માઇનર લઈ જવાનો છે. એટલે ટ્રેડ માટે કઈ બહુ લાંબુ ટેબલ પર બચતું નથી લાંબે ગાળે. ઇન ધ લેબ ગ્રોન સ્પેસ આ બધા જ કન્સ્ટ્રેન્ટ નીકળી જાય છે. જો ડિમાન્ડ ક્રિએટ કરી શકાશે તો અનલિમિટેડ સપ્લાય બી છે અને માર્જિન્સ બી બ્રાન્ડિંગ વગેરેનો એફર્ટ રાઈટ રીતે કર્યો હશે તો એ માર્જિન્સ બી એક કંપની રાખી શકશે. કોઈકનું માર્જિન 2% હશે તો કોઈનું 200% બી લઈ શકશે, જે નેચરલમાં પોસિબલ નથી. અને એટલે જો ખાલી આપણે 1% 2% લોકોથી નેચરલ ડાયમંડનો ટ્રેડ આટલો મોટો હોઈ શકે તો આપણે 50%, હું 98 તો કહેતો જ નથી, છેલ્લા બોટમ 40-50% ને ગણો જ નહીં તો પણ જો 50% લોકો લઈ શકે અને વારંવાર લઈ શકે. અગેન ધ મેઇન difference between a mind and lab-grown is that this is for so many occasions you can keep on buying so many different products. Accessories ની રીતે લો, ફેશન ની રીતે લો, ગિફ્ટિંગ માટે લો, કોર્પોરેટ ગિફ્ટિંગ, ફેમિલીમાં બી અલગ અલગ મેમ્બર્સ છે. It could have numerous applications. અને આ તો હજુ આપણે જે એપ્લિકેશન્સ ખબર છે. ઘણી બધી જ્યારે હું આઈઆઈટી ચેન્નઈના પ્રોફેસર સાથે વાત આગળ હું કરતો હતો, કોઈ કોન્ફરન્સમાં ભેગો થયો હતો, તો એ સ્પેસમાં જે એપ્લિકેશન છે, સેમિકન્ડક્ટર ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રીમાં જે એપ્લિકેશન છે ને બીજી બધી ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રીયલ એપ્લિકેશન, એની તો આપણે વાત જ નથી કરતા. અત્યારે તો કન્ઝમ્પશન, પર્સનલ યુઝ માટે, વેધર ઇટ ઇઝ ગિફ્ટિંગ, ફેશન, જ્વેલરી, વોટ એવર વી ટર્મ ઇટ, એની જ આપણે ખાલી વાત કરીએ તો બધું પુટ ટુગેધર જોઈશું તો આની અનલિમિટેડ, જેટલે આ ઘણો ગ્રોથ મૂકવો હોય એટલો પોસિબલ છે. ને યર ઓન યર બી મલ્ટિપલ ટાઈમ્સનો મે બી આપણે આ ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રી 100% પર એનમ પરપેચ્યુઅલી 20 યર્સ સુધી વધી શકે તો પણ વધી શકે. અગેન વી આર ટોકિંગ મેઇનલી ઓફ યુએસએ. આજે નેચરલ ડાયમંડના કન્ઝમ્પશનમાં યુએસએ, ચાઇના, ઇન્ડિયા, થોડું ઘણું મિડલ ઈસ્ટ, થોડું ઘણું બીજું ફાર ઈસ્ટ અને જાપાન, આ છોડી દો તો બીજા બધા કન્ટ્રીઝમાં ને થોડું યુરોપ, બીજા બધા કન્ટ્રીઝમાં તો કન્ઝમ્પશન મિનિસ્ક્યુલ છે. આખે આખું લેટિન અમેરિકા લઈ લો, આફ્રિકા લઈ લો, there are so many આખા કોન્ટિનેન્ટ્સ છે કે જ્યાં નેચરલ ડાયમંડ ભાગ્ય જ વેચાય છે. એની સામે લેબ ગ્રોનમાં તો એક નાના ગામડામાં બી વેચાઈ શકશે. So I think there is unlimited potential and just that we need to get the things right as an industry, and if that is done then probably the sky is the limit.
Thank you, Nirav bhai. Thank you, Nirav bhai. There are a couple of questions on the chat. I'm sure you can address to that.
So I can see, how can online retailers aren't listing labs like ritani.com, and why do you think they aren't doing it? Like how so many online retailers are listing natural diamonds? So I think again it depends on company to company, but probably if they are not listing, if they are listing natural diamonds and not listing lab grown, I think it is better for both, rather than confusing the consumer who is coming to that platform with two very different products. I think if there is a specialized online retailer who either just shows lab grown or just shows natural diamonds, it is better for both. That is my personal view. कोई पर्टिक्युलर ऑनलाइन रिटेलर केम નથી લિસ્ટ કરતો એ તો જવાબ આપવો ડિફિકલ્ટ છે. They would have their own strategy. Probably they don't want to cannibalize their sales of natural. Probably એમની top line માં એ બહુ impact કરી શકતી, whatever could be the reason, but it is not bad in itself. That is my personal view. I think a question છે, what is the composition of recently introduced generic fake diamond? I didn't really understand generic fake diamond. Amish, you want
I can answer that, Nirav. Yeah, I can answer that. So in the current times, there is a material that is being grown that is hardened on the top and coated that tests like a diamond. It's primarily similar to a cubic zircon that is further coated with thick layers and that can actually test. However, when you take it through a spectrophometer or a laboratory, it is identified. This product has been around for a little over a year, got no traction, and really it's basically an advanced form of cubic zircon. So does the created diamond or the lab-grown diamond industry have anything to worry about it? It's absolutely not, because then you're really the question is really, should we be worried about CZ and lab-grown diamonds? So I think that we should not worry about it. The only thing I can request all the fellow dealers and producers is I was approached more than once to take the product to market, and I had refused it because I firmly believe in the future of the created diamond industry. So that's the only part I can request. And we have to be prepared that there's going to be adulteration, so which is a normal course of business. So people who will fraud will do what they do. But if the community works closer and doesn't get tempted, I think we will be able to avoid. I think that's the nicest way I can say it. Is the product available in New York on the street as yet? No, the product is not available, but there are some foreign dealers that are approaching people on 47th Street. Anybody who has a name out there. That's how I was approached twice. I was approached by somebody in UK. I was approached by somebody in China. If I was interested, they even went to IGI for a certificate, which of course doesn't come as a lab grown. But I think that's the information that I have to the most current. What I know, I think they were also, just one more part I wanted to say, they did approach a large retailer who basically refused to carry it. So that's the most current information I have on this product.
Thank you, Amish bhai. Sarju bhai has another question. If 1 carat diamond prices can go down to $1.50, I think the growers can also answer this. Anyone wants to take it up?
I think I can give some kind of overview on what I understand the calculation to be, and maybe someone can add based on their own inputs. But I think surely not for certified segments, but it is likely that more and more 1 carat stones will go in that uncertified category over the next year. But I think when we talk about overheads per piece, I think all throughout manufacturing, to even assuming a 50% yield on the rough, I think that cost at $50 per carat does not seem realistic over the next year. But again, in the longer run, maybe as energy costs decrease and as we get more efficient with manufacturing, especially for some special shapes that we can get more efficiency out of, it is possible. But I think the next milestone is going to be a sustainable $100 per carat mark, which is still a long way out, I think.
Because it is a technology product and technology will keep on improving, so the marginal cost of growing will surely keep on going down. The key aspect currently is the cutting polishing cost, and which is as it goes down, the proportion of the cutting polishing costs and other overheads in the diamond total cost keeps on increasing. However, I know that a lot of effort is being currently going on to develop technologies where the polishing will be all robotic and automation, and that technology again will keep on improving, and therefore the cutting polishing costs will also over a period of time keep on going down. So currently I don't see immediately a $50 kind of pricing. It probably, with the manpower cost and the overhead, the conversion cost, everything, it cannot be maybe less than 80, 90 or maybe above 75. But going forward, people need to be prepared for this. And I think for people in the downstream, or the more downstream you are, it is better that the component cost keeps on going down, so that you can spend more on marketing, develop a brand. Like if the why does marketing, branding, advertisements don't work in the natural diamond industry because the component price itself, the price of the diamond itself is so high, it doesn't leave any room for further costs. Here in the case of lab growns, I think irrespective of the cost, if you are able to properly brand and market it, then you are better off with lower prices at the cost level, at the B2B level. Retail prices will not probably go down beyond a point.
I think I want to add to specifically to Nirav, especially coming in from the front end, that the success for all the dealers, jewelry manufacturers that are focused on downstream is going to be very, very clear, is disconnecting the component cost from the final finished product. The more you are able to do that, the less you're impacted, and then you can then further pick up margin. How Nirav's advice is that as economy of scale and improved technology helps in reduction of cost, you can pick up better margins through further mobilized marketing. So I think the cost plus model, everybody has to move away from, especially in the front end. So yeah.
Thank you, Amish bhai. I don't know if there is any other question people have raised.
So if there are any questions while we take that, I would quickly like to run two polls, one on the role of association, and then second was overall whether this session was useful for everyone, so that maybe the association can get an idea of doing such sessions again. So I put this one question. This is on the differential between lab-grown diamonds and natural diamonds. If you can put your vote on this, and then I'll do on a survey point. Because this is something more actionable, which the association can then take up based on the views of everyone on the pricing, on the evaluation parameters. How many of us agree?
So Nirav, when you click, it means you agree, or
yes.
If you check it, it means you agree,
yes,
right?
Yes. Yes. If you agree, then you click. If you don't agree, don't click. Okay, so 71% believe that, okay, it is still rising. 75% that delinking of the pricing is important, and therefore I think it is more an actionable item for the association. Again, new evaluation parameters, currently 65% believe it should be different than the lab grown, and the positioning 63%. So while the numbers are keeping on changes, but by and large, majority are of the same view. So I think this is something which can be useful for the association. Let me now run a poll on overall survey of the session. How was it? Somehow I'm not able to launch, but it's okay. That was just whether this was useful. Okay, it is now on. So I think everyone is unanimous that the session was useful. And again, most of the people will implement the learnings in their businesses, and some are saying that some handholding by the association and others will be useful. So I think, again, thank you for this response. It is very heartening that the session was useful for most of the participants. So again, with this, I'm ending this poll, and over to you again, Basan bhai.
Thank you, Nirav bhai. Thank you, Vinit bhai. This was really excellent and educational. I would ask Amal bhai to please thank Vinit Bhai and Nirav Bhai from all of us. Amal Bhai, please.
Thank you very much, Vinit Bhai and Nirav Bhai.